From cartel violence in Mexico to fuel shortages in Cuba and now the conflict in the Middle East. This has been a challenging time for airlines and their passengers. And to take a look at what's happening, particularly when it comes to prices, let's bring in Martin Firestone, a travel insurance broker and the president of Travel Secure Inc. He is in Florida. And thank you very much for joining us, Martin. What's happening with prices right now?
They're only going one way, and it's up. Sadly, the price of oil increasing leads to higher cost of jet fuel. And with that, it's only a matter of time imminently that the price of airline travel definitely has to go up.
And in terms of that lag, as I understand it, airlines buy fuel in bulk. And I know you're not an expert in fuel, but when can we expect the increased purchase price of fuel to trickle down to ticket prices?
Yeah, that's the big question. And each airline may have different contracts, and contracts may be ending at certain times. So I suspect that all one can do when they're looking now to book travel, especially for the summer, is to get pricing sooner than later, because it will change. There's no question, but it is only a question of when. So that's where it's at right now.
Let's talk about travelers who have booked flights already, maybe months prior to the war in the Middle East. What kind of challenges should they be looking out for?
Well, their price, needless to say, is fixed. No one's coming back and asking you for more money for your ticket. Now the fear is, what if they do a delay, a suspension of flights, or a cancellation? That's going to present a big problem to people, not necessarily for the price of the air ticket, because that'll be refunded or credited depending on the airline's position. The fear, of course, is what about that cruise ship they were supposed to catch the next day? What about that house they were renting? What about those tour guides or hotels that are paid non-refundable amounts of money? How will they get that money back if they can't get there?
Yeah, and so what advice do you have for travelers who may all of a sudden, especially based on your answer, be thinking, oh yeah, I better check on some of those secondary impacts?
Yeah, they're big, and it's what I live and breathe, and it's that anytime you are purchasing a trip and putting out non-refundable dollars, you have to back it up with trip cancellation and interruption insurance, solely for the reason that if you do not get to that destination that you were hoping to, and you're not going to get a refund from the cruise ship if it leaves without you, and you're not going to try and catch up with it at another port, you do need cancellation. That's for when you're supposed to get on the plane if you never get on that trip, or interruption, you're already on the trip, now you can't get back, you have extra nights in hotels, you have additional costs. That's the role of insurance when you're buying it for that reason.
And that kind of insurance in this sort of situation that may be triggered because the airlines canceled the flights because of a war, does the insurance still apply?
Well, that's the question that one has to ask a broker, an insurance company, what their position and contract reads, because credit cards and many others have exclusions on war. Others do not have an exclusion on war, but if a level 3 travel advisory or more, which is avoid all non-essential travel or avoid all travel, is called, and you buy the cancellation insurance after that date, you run the risk that you have an exclusion because it's already a known cause. So the bottom line is you've got to ask questions just like you asked right now. Will it be covered if my flight gets canceled because there was a fuel shortage due to war of some sort?
Yeah, and I believe the legal principle in Canada, and probably in the States as well, is if you have a written contract, even if you have a verbal conversation separately, the written contract takes precedence. So I guess people just need to be really careful about what's in writing in their agreement. And the problem with that is those agreements are usually so complicated, and I personally am usually just a hurry to end the conversation. But just to reiterate, you're saying travelers, especially now, need to find out what they're signing up for, especially when it comes to insurance.
Absolutely. And no one's going to put pen to paper here. So you really have to have faith and believe in either whoever you're dealing with, that they assure you that if in fact you bought this prior to a travel advisory, that you would be covered in the event you get an email that your flight has been canceled and it's been rescheduled for 3 days later. That's no good to anybody if you're catching a cruise, as I said, or you've only got a week and you're renting a house. So, buyer beware. You got to ask the right questions. And these are strange times between Cuba and Mexico. And now this, travelers are really facing challenges that they never, ever had before.
Martin Firestone in Florida, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.